So often, people in relationships with narcissists ask themselves this exact question. Why is it that I see this person's cruelty, manipulation, or lack of empathy, but everyone else thinks they're amazing? Let's break it down. Narcissistic individuals are masters of impression management. They know how to walk into a room and command attention. They know how to say the right things, crack the right jokes, and offer just enough charm that people think, wow, what a great person. That's the mask. That's the performance. But you don't live with the mask. You live with the person behind it. Behind closed doors, the charm evaporates, and you are left with the dismissiveness, the gaslighting, the entitlement, and sometimes the outright cruelty. This creates a painful split. Outsiders see the highlight reel while you're living with the director's cut. Narcissists also know how to target. They are very selective with their behavior. To colleagues, neighbors, or casual friends, they present their best side. To the people closest to them, partners, children, family members, they drop the act. Why? Because intimacy is where the facade is hardest to maintain, and because they feel entitled to unload their worst on the people they assume will stay. Now, here's where it gets even more complicated: gaslighting. When you call them out, they deny it. They twist your words. They make you doubt yourself. And after a while, you start thinking, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it's just me. That isolation deepens because no one else sees what you're seeing. And this is why you feel so alone. The world praises their charisma. You see their cruelty. But hear this clearly. Your perspective is valid. You are not too sensitive. You are not imagining it. You are seeing a truth that others cannot because they only interact with the mask. Understanding this doesn't make the situation easier, but it does give you clarity. And clarity is power. It allows you to stop seeking validation from people who will never see what you see, and instead focus on protecting your peace, setting boundaries, and reminding yourself that your reality matters. Because in the end, the fact that you see it doesn't make you the problem. It makes you aware. And awareness is the first step toward freedom. When people ask, why does no one else see what I see? The very first answer lies in the fact that narcissists are absolute masters at curating their public image. If there were an award for performance, they would win it every time because what they present to the world is often so polished, so charming, so socially acceptable that it leaves others questioning why anyone would say something negative about them. This carefully designed facade is not accidental. It's a survival strategy, a way of ensuring admiration, protection, and cover. Think about it. A narcissistic individual will walk into a room, and within minutes they have the spotlight. They know exactly how to command attention, how to appear confident, how to sprinkle in just the right mix of humor and intelligence. If they want to impress, they will. They might volunteer at just the right moment, hold the door for someone in public, or deliver that well-timed compliment. To the casual observer, they look considerate, generous, maybe even inspiring. But here's the key: that's not the whole story. That's a highlight reel. Just like social media, where people post their best vacations, their edited selfies, their successes, narcissists put on a social media version of themselves in real life. The world sees their smiling pictures. You live with the unfiltered footage. This curated image serves a very strategic purpose. By controlling how others perceive them, narcissists ensure that when conflict arises, when someone close to them dares to speak up, the outside world struggles to believe it. People will say things like, "Are you sure? He seems so nice." Or, "I can't imagine her saying that. She's always so helpful." That disbelief is part of the trap. The narcissist knows that if they can win the public, they can silence the private truth. And they are very calculated about it. Around acquaintances, coworkers, or community members, they put on a mask of warmth, respect, or generosity. But behind closed doors, with the people who know them intimately, that mask slips. The criticism comes out, the gaslighting begins, the dismissiveness shows up, and the entitlement runs unchecked. You end up seeing behaviors that no one else does because you live beyond the performance. Now, here's what makes it even more complicated. The narcissist's curated image is not always flashy. Sometimes it's subtle. Maybe it's the person who always presents themselves as the selfless helper, constantly doing favors for others. But then, At home, they resentfully throw it in your face or weaponize their generosity. Or maybe it's the one who acts like the perfect partner in public, holding hands, smiling for photos, complimenting you. But in private, they belittle your every move. The contrast is jarring, but it's intentional. They want the world to see the mask, and they want you to question your sanity. This dynamic creates a unique kind of loneliness for the person closest to them. You see the cruelty, the manipulation, the indifference, yet the rest of the world praises them. That gap between your lived experience and the public perception is not just frustrating, it's invalidating. You start wondering, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe no one else sees it because it really isn't there. But it is there. You're simply the one living behind the curtain. Consider how carefully curated this image often is. A narcissist may volunteer in visible ways, coaching a team, joining a charity, showing up at events. They will strategically highlight these actions because they know how it makes them look. Meanwhile, you may notice that the same energy is never directed at you or your needs. They will go out of their way to appear like the perfect parent at the school play, but at home, they ignore their children's emotional needs. They will go the extra mile to be seen as the best friend at a party, but privately, they are dismissive, neglectful, or even cruel to those who depend on them. The truth is, narcissists thrive on external validation. They want to be admired, respected, envied. That external feedback keeps the fight alive. And so they work tirelessly to maintain it, like an actor who never wants to leave the stage. For them, the audience is everything. And if you behind the scenes dare to challenge the script, you risk being cast as the difficult one, the sensitive one, or the troublemaker. It's no accident that so many people feel silenced in these relationships. The narcissist's public image is their shield, their armor. It protects them from accountability because outsiders can't reconcile the two versions of this person. They see the mask and assume it's reality. And the narcissist counts on that. This is why survivors of narcissistic relationships often describe feeling invisible. They carry the weight of the truth, but the rest of the world is fooled by the performance. It's a deeply isolating experience. But here's what's important to understand if you see the private side, if you see the patterns behind the curtain, it's not because you're too critical or too sensitive. It's because you're close enough to witness what others don't. Your awareness is not a flaw, it's clarity. So the next time you find yourself wondering, why am I the only one who sees it? Remember this, you are not the only one. It's simply that others are only given a carefully edited glimpse while you are living the unfiltered reality. And while that may feel isolating, it also means you hold the truth. And truth, even when painful, is a form of freedom. It gives you the ability to stop chasing validation from those who only know the mask and instead start trusting your own eyes, your own experiences, your own reality. Because narcissists may curate their image flawlessly for the world, but behind the mask, the truth always lies. And you, whether you realize it or not, have already seen it. When you are in close proximity to a narcissistic person, you do not just see their public face. You see their private self. And that private self is very different from what the outside world encounters. What others see is often polished, agreeable, even magnetic at times. But what you live with is the unfiltered version, the one that emerges once the doors are closed and there's no audience to impress. And this difference between the public and private versions of the narcissistic individual is one of the most painful aspects of being in such a relationship. The private self of a narcissist is rarely about warmth, safety, or consistency. Instead, it is often about control, criticism, unpredictability, and an endless cycle of needing to be at the center. The very things that make them look impressive in public, confidence, assertiveness, quick wit, can, in private, turn into arrogance, dismissiveness, cruelty, and an inability to tolerate your needs or your emotions. What feels charming to the outside world can feel oppressive to the person who lives with them. In private, the narcissist often drops the pretense. They don't feel the need to impress you anymore. Because you're not an audience, they assume you're a captive. That's when the criticisms start to flow. Maybe it's about your appearance, your choices, your intelligence. Or maybe it's subtler, sarcasm disguised as humor, little digs that chip away at your self-esteem. The world will never hear those comments because the narcissist saves them for the people they believe they own emotionally. And it doesn't stop at criticism. The private self is where entitlement shows up. They expect their needs to take precedence. They expect the household to revolve around them, their schedules, their moods. They may minimize your needs, roll their eyes when you ask for support, or even accuse you of being demanding if you try to assert yourself. In private, they reveal their inability to compromise, their deep discomfort with vulnerability, and their refusal to meet you halfway. Then there's the emotional unpredictability. Living with the private self of a narcissist often feels like walking on eggshells. You never quite know what version of them you're going to get. One moment, they may be pleasant or even affectionate, and the next, they snap over something minor, unleashing anger, passive aggression, or icy silence. That inconsistency keeps you off balance. It conditions you to stay hyper-alert, scanning for their moods, adjusting yourself constantly in an effort to avoid conflict. To the outside world, they look like the picture of stability, but to you, they feel like a storm system that could change without warning. Another layer of the private self is the lack of empathy. Out in public, narcissists know how to mimic empathy. They can nod at the right times, say the right words, and make people feel understood. But in private, when you are struggling, when you are vulnerable, you may find that they either dismiss you or somehow make your pain about them. Instead of comfort, you get irritation. Instead of validation, you get judgment. This is one of the deepest wounds of being in close proximity to a narcissist. You realize that the person who is supposed to care about you simply doesn't show up when you need them most. And then there is gaslighting. This is another feature of the private self. Out in the world, they may deny wrongdoing, but with you, gaslighting becomes an intimate weapon. If you point out their contradictions, their broken promises, or their unkind words, they flip the script. They tell you it didn't happen. They insist you misunderstood. They accuse you of being dramatic. And because it happens in private, with no witnesses, you're left questioning your memory and your judgment. That erosion of your trust in yourself is precisely how the private self keeps you trapped. The private self of a narcissist is also marked by a profound double standard. They expect unwavering loyalty from you, but they do not give it back. They demand admiration, but offer little in return. They hold you to rules that they themselves never follow. That imbalance becomes clearer the longer you spend with them. And it is something that outsiders will rarely believe because the public self appears so polished and fair. Over time, the experience of living with this private self takes a toll. It wears down your sense of worth because the contrast between what the world sees and what you live is so stark. People may compliment you on having such a charming partner, such a generous parent, such an impressive friend, and inside you want to scream. That's not who they are at home. But you bite your tongue because you know that saying it out loud will only result in disbelief. Or worse, more backlash from the narcissist if it gets back to them. That silencing is part of the private torment. It is critical to understand that the private self is not an accident. It's not as if the narcissist simply lets their guard down at home. It's a deliberate pattern. They know they can maintain their public mask as long as they have a safe place to unload their true behaviors. You become that safe place not because they trust you, but because they feel entitled to use you. That's the cruel paradox of intimacy with a narcissist. The closer you are, the worse you see. So when you feel like you're the only one witnessing the cruelty, the arrogance, the dismissiveness, it's because you are being exposed to the private self, the version of them that the world will never meet. And that experience is incredibly disorienting, but it's also clarifying. Because once you recognize that there are two versions, the public mask and the private self, you stop wondering if you're crazy. You stop thinking, why does no one else see this? And start understanding, of course no one else sees it. They're not meant to. Living with the private self of a narcissist is one of the loneliest experiences imaginable. But naming it, understanding it, and accepting that your reality is real, that is how you begin to reclaim your sanity. Because their private self may be hidden from the world, but you have seen it clearly. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that awareness, as painful as it is is the beginning of your freedom. One of the most confusing aspects of being in a relationship with a narcissistic person is the way they seem to treat you so differently from how they treat everyone else. It can leave you wondering, why do they save their harshest words, their coldest behavior, their most dismissive attitude for me, while showing so much charm, respect, or generosity to others? The answer lies in the power of selective targeting. Narcissists don't treat everyone the same. They know exactly who to direct their worst behavior toward, and they know exactly who to protect their image with. That selective approach is part of what makes the experience so isolating and painful. When narcissistic individuals engage with strangers, acquaintances, or even colleagues, they often put their best foot forward. They smile, they joke, they act attentive. They know how to present themselves in ways that make them likable and even admirable. This isn't just instinct. It's strategy. They want admiration, validation, and control of the narrative, so they make sure to cultivate goodwill with people who don't know them deeply. The outer circle gets the performance. But with the inner circle, partners, children, family members, or close friends, the story is different. That's where the targeting happens. Because the narcissist believes that the people closest to them are theirs. They no longer feel the need to keep up the performance. They assume you're not going anywhere, and that assumption gives them permission to drop the mask and unload the frustration, entitlement, and cruelty they keep hidden from others. This selective targeting is not random. It is deliberate. Narcissists are very good at reading people. They can sense who is safe to mistreat and who is not. For example, they may never raise their voice in front of a boss because they know it would damage their reputation. But at home with you, they may shout, belittle, or dismiss you because they feel confident there will be no consequences. That's why so many people say, everyone else thinks they're amazing, but I know the truth. You know the truth because you're in the zone where the mask comes off. Selective targeting also means that narcissists are highly skilled at compartmentalizing their behavior. They can turn it on and off like a switch. Imagine how disorienting that feels for the person on the receiving end. You witness their cruelty, but then watch them act like the perfect partner or parent in public. It leaves you questioning which version is real. The truth is, the charm is calculated, and the cruelty is the reality they feel entitled to reveal only to you. Over time, this dynamic conditions you to second-guess yourself, because when you try to share your experiences with others, they may say things like, I can't imagine them doing that, or they're always so nice to me. And you're left feeling even more isolated. That's exactly how the narcissist benefits from selective targeting. It protects their reputation while eroding your credibility. If they can ensure that no one else sees the mistreatment, then your voice is easier to dismiss. Another layer of selective targeting is that narcissists don't treat everyone in the inner circle equally. They often single out one person as the scapegoat, the one who gets the brunt of their criticism, blame, and hostility, while favoring others as golden children or allies. This happens in families where one child is idealized while another is constantly put down. It happens in workplaces where one employee becomes the target of micromanagement or hostility while others are praised. It even happens in friendships where one person gets sidelined while others are kept closer. That uneven treatment is not just painful, it's divisive. It keeps people competing for the narcissist's approval and prevents unity against them. Selective targeting also thrives on privacy. Most of the harshest behaviors occur when there are no witnesses. Narcissists know that their image is everything, so they save the put-downs, the silent treatments, the dismissiveness, and the manipulation for moments when it's just you and them. Then, if you speak out, they can deny it and say, that never happened, or why are you making things up? And because others never saw it, they can maintain their facade. It's a form of plausible deniability, and it makes you doubt yourself even more. Living under this selective targeting can feel like a psychological trap. You watch the narcissist act kind, generous, or even selfless in public, and then you experience their entitlement, coldness, or cruelty in private. You start to wonder if maybe you're exaggerating, if maybe you're the one who's provoking it. But the truth is, you're not imagining it. You are simply being targeted because you are the safe person to unload on. That doesn't make you weak. It means you're in the position where the narcissist feels they can reveal their private behaviors without consequence. This is also why survivors of narcissistic relationships often say things like, "I feel invisible," or "nobody believes me." The narcissist's ability to selectively target creates a world where outsiders see only the mask while you bear the weight of the truth. It's an exhausting place to be. But understanding this pattern is empowering because once you recognize it, you stop expecting others to validate what they haven't seen. You stop trying to convince people who only know the performance, and you start trusting your own reality. The selective targeting also reveals something important about the narcissist. Their cruelty is not accidental. It is not a matter of losing control. If they can hold it together in front of certain people, but choose not to with you, that means they are in control of their behavior. They are choosing where and when to reveal it. That's not a lack of self-control, it's a lack of regard for you. And naming that distinction is critical. So when you find yourself asking, why do they treat me this way when everyone else gets the good version? Remember, it's not because you deserve it. It's because they have made a calculation about who they can target without losing their carefully built image. They know the performance works on the outside world, and they assume your silence will protect them on the inside. But here's the truth: the fact that you see the targeting, the fact that you feel the difference between the public version and the private treatment means that you are not crazy, you are perceptive. You are noticing the divide that others are meant to overlook. And while that realization is painful, it is also liberating. Because once you name selective targeting for what it is, you begin to reclaim your sense of reality. You understand that their behavior is about them, not you. And that understanding is the first step toward stepping out of the trap they've created. One of the most insidious experiences of being in a relationship with a narcissistic person is the way they can make you doubt your own reality. This is not accidental. It is a deliberate tactic called gaslighting, and it is one of the most powerful tools in their arsenal. Over time, gaslighting doesn't just confuse you in the moment. It reshapes the way you see yourself, your memory, and even your sense of truth. That's why people who have lived through it often say, "I feel like I lost myself," because gaslighting slowly erodes the foundation of trust you once had in your own mind. Gaslighting happens in many forms, and sometimes it can be subtle. Maybe you recall something they said, and when you bring it up, they respond with, "I never said that," even though you are certain they did. Or maybe you point out a contradiction in their behavior, and they insist, "That's not what happened, you're twisting things." At first, you might feel annoyed or confused. But when it happens over and over, you start questioning yourself. Did I hear them wrong? Am I remembering this incorrectly? Maybe I overreacted. That's how self-doubt begins to creep in. Other times, gaslighting can be more aggressive. You might confront them about how their actions hurt you, and instead of accountability, you hear, "You're crazy," or "You're too sensitive," or "You're imagining things." Those words are like poison because they not only dismiss your feelings, they rewrite the story to make you believe that the problem isn't their behavior. It's your perception. Over time, you begin to internalize that script. You think, maybe I really am too sensitive. Maybe I'm the one making things difficult. That's exactly what gaslighting is designed to do. I silence you by making you distrust yourself. What makes gaslighting so effective is that it often happens in private. No one else hears the denials, the twisting of facts, the constant reframing of reality. And so when you try to talk to others about what you're experiencing, they don't understand the depth of your confusion. They might say, "Are you sure? They don't seem like that kind of person." And because you've already been conditioned to doubt yourself, you start to believe the outsiders more than your own lived experience. That is how deeply gaslighting works its way into your psyche. Gaslighting is also effective because it's inconsistent. A narcissistic person doesn't gaslight every single moment. There may be times when they agree with you, when they acknowledge something, or even when they validate your perspective. That brief validation can feel like a breath of air after being underwater, and it makes you cling to the hope that they do understand you. But then, just as quickly, the denial or the manipulation returns. This back and Fourth keeps you unstable, constantly questioning which version is real. The inconsistency itself becomes part of the control. Another layer of gaslighting is emotional. Narcissists don't just deny facts, they deny your feelings. If you say, "That hurt me," they might reply, "You're overreacting." If you say, "That made me uncomfortable," they might say, "You're imagining things." By doing this, they strip away your right to your own emotional truth. Over time, you stop voicing how you feel because you've been trained to believe your feelings are wrong. This emotional silencing is one of the deepest wounds left by gaslighting because it severs your connection to your own intuition. Gaslighting can also appear in more covert ways, like when they minimize what happened. You might call out something cruel they said, and they respond with, "I was just joking," or "You're making a big deal out of nothing." These statements may sound mild, but they pack a punch because they invalidate your reality while making you feel guilty for even speaking up. Little by little, you start to silence yourself before they even have to, because the pattern has already trained you to dismiss your own perceptions. The longer you live in this cycle, the more you start to adapt to it. You might begin keeping mental notes or even writing things down just to prove to yourself that you're not imagining it. You might rehearse conversations in your head, wondering if you're remembering them accurately. You might replay moments over and over, trying to figure out if you misunderstood. All of this mental labor is a direct result of gaslighting, and it leaves you exhausted. It takes so much energy to constantly defend your own memory and feelings, and that energy drain is part of why you feel stuck. Gaslighting also creates dependency. Because you doubt yourself, you start to rely more on the narcissistic person's version of reality. They say, "That's not what happened," and you eventually believe them because trusting your own mind feels unsafe. That dependency strengthens their control over you. The more you believe their version of events, the more power they have to define not only what happened, but who you are. That is how gaslighting shapes identity. It doesn't just distort memory. It chips away at self-worth. But here is the truth: gaslighting works not because you are weak, but because you are human. Humans are wired to question themselves when others push back forcefully, especially if the other person is someone you love or trust. You care about the relationship and you want to keep the peace. That makes you vulnerable to believing the version of reality that minimizes conflict. That's not weakness, it's compassion. The tragedy is that narcissists exploit that compassion. Recognizing gaslighting for what it is can be painful, but it is also liberating. The moment you say to yourself, "This is not me forgetting. This is not me exaggerating. This is gaslighting," you take back a piece of your reality. Naming it is powerful because it reminds you that your experiences are real, your feelings are valid, and your memories deserve to be trusted. And even if others don't see it, even if the narcissist denies it, your truth remains intact. Gaslighting is designed to make you feel like you are losing your mind. But the very fact that you are questioning it, the very fact that you are searching for clarity, shows that your mind is intact. It shows that something inside you refuses to give up on your own truth. And that inner voice, however small it may feel right now, is the one thing a narcissist can never fully take away. That voice is your way back to yourself. So when you feel the weight of self-doubt pressing down, remember, the confusion you feel is not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you've been systematically manipulated. And once you see that, you can begin to rebuild trust in yourself. You can start to step out of the fog of gaslighting and back into the clarity of your own truth. Because your reality matters. Your perception matters. And no amount of denial or manipulation can erase the fact that what you lived is real. One of the most painful parts of being in a relationship with a narcissistic person is the feeling that no one else sees what you see. You watch them charm friends, impress coworkers, and win over family members while you sit there holding the weight of their private cruelty. You may try to explain what's happening behind closed doors, only to be met with disbelief, doubt, or even dismissal. People say things like, "I can't imagine them acting that way," or "They've always been so nice to me." That gap between your lived reality and the world's perception is isolating, and it can make you feel invisible. But the truth is, others don't see it because they are not meant to. Narcissistic individuals carefully control what they show, and they know exactly how to manage impressions to keep their image intact. The world usually sees the mask. That mask is polished, agreeable, even magnetic at times. It's the curated version of themselves designed to draw admiration, to win trust, and to maintain a spotless reputation. Strangers or acquaintances rarely spend enough time with them to notice the cracks. They interact with the public persona, the generous one, the funny one, the intelligent one. What they don't experience is the hours upon hours of private behavior where the mask slips and the darker patterns emerge. You see those patterns because you're close, because intimacy makes it impossible for them to keep the performance going forever. Others also don't see it because narcissists are highly strategic in how they distribute their behavior. They don't mistreat everyone. They often pick and choose their targets. You might be singled out for constant criticism or dismissiveness, while others are spared. That selective targeting is deliberate. It keeps the world fooled and it keeps you doubting yourself. If no one else is experiencing it, you begin to wonder, maybe it really is me. Maybe I'm the one who's overreacting. But that's exactly the trap. By ensuring others see only the charm, the narcissist protects themselves from accountability. Another reason others don't see it is that narcissistic behavior often happens in private moments. The cutting remark, the silent treatment, the gaslighting, these rarely unfold in public view. When you try to explain it, people who have never experienced it firsthand may struggle to grasp how pervasive and damaging it is. They imagine the person they know, the smiling, generous version, and they can't reconcile it with what you're describing. That disconnect leaves you feeling like a lone witness to a crime no one else believes occurred. It's also worth noting that people generally want to believe the best in others, especially if the narcissist has made a positive impression on them. Admitting that someone they admire, or trust is capable of cruelty is uncomfortable. It forces them to question their own judgment, and most people resist that. It's easier for them to dismiss your perspective than to confront the possibility that they've been deceived. So they cling to the version they know, leaving you further isolated. Narcissists also actively manage what others see. They know how to perform generosity when it matters. They'll donate when it's public. They'll help when people are watching. They'll flatter when it earns them points. But when the spotlight is gone, that generosity often evaporates. You may never see the same effort directed at you in private. This public performance reinforces the belief that they're kind, selfless, or admirable, making it harder for outsiders to believe your account. And then there's the role of gaslighting. When you speak out, the narcissist is quick to discredit you. They may call you dramatic or crazy to others, planting seeds of doubt long before you even share your story. They know that if they control the narrative, your words will lose credibility. This preemptive strike ensures that when you finally speak, people may already view you as the problem. That makes you feel not only unseen, but silenced. It's devastating to realize that even people you thought would support you, friends, family, even professionals at times, may not fully understand what you're going through. They see only fragments, and those fragments don't match the reality you live every day. That mismatch creates loneliness. You feel like you're carrying a secret no one else will believe. But what you must remember is that your experience is real, even if others cannot see it. Their inability to see the narcissist's behavior doesn't invalidate your truth. It simply reflects the skill with which narcissists disguise themselves. Over time, you may stop talking about it altogether. You learn that when you share, you're met with skepticism or confusion, and that only deepens your sense of isolation. You tell yourself, what's the point? No one will believe me. And that silence can feel suffocating. But understand this, the reason no one else sees it is not because it isn't happening. It's because you are the one living beyond the mask. You are the one the narcissist feels safe enough to reveal their true self to. And while that's painful, it also means you are seeing the truth others are shielded from. And here's something important to hold on to. Just because others don't see it now doesn't mean they never will. Often, with time, the mask begins to crack. Patterns emerge that even the best performance can't hide forever. People may eventually witness glimpses of the same behaviors you've lived with for years. But whether or not that happens, your reality stands on its own. You don't need outside validation to confirm what you know in your bones. The challenge is to trust yourself even when the world doesn't. That may be the hardest part, standing firm in your own truth when everyone else is enchanted by the mask. But that trust in yourself is also the beginning of freedom. The very fact that you see what others cannot is not a weakness, it's awareness. And awareness, even when lonely, is a form of power. So when you find yourself asking, why doesn't anyone else see it? Remember, they are not meant to. The narcissist has built their life around controlling what others perceive. But you see it because you're close enough to witness the cracks, close enough to live beyond the performance. And while that awareness feels isolating, it also means you are holding the truth. And holding the truth, no matter how painful, will always be more powerful than living in the lie. When you spend time in a relationship with a narcissistic person, there comes a moment when you start to wonder if you're the problem. You question whether you're imagining things, whether you're too sensitive, whether you've misread the situation. And because the narcissist is so skilled at denial, deflection, and blame shifting, those questions only grow louder in your head. You may even find yourself thinking, am I going crazy? This is one of the cruelest outcomes of living with narcissistic behavior, the erosion of your confidence in your own mind. But let me say this clearly, you are not crazy. You are not imagining it, and you are not alone. What you are experiencing is the predictable result of a very real pattern of manipulation and control. Narcissists rely on confusion to maintain power. They gaslight, they contradict themselves, they change stories, they deny what happened, and then they turn the blame back on you. Over time, that chaos begins to seep into your thoughts. You start to lose trust in your memory, your instincts, and even your emotions. That loss of trust can feel like you're unraveling. But what's actually happening is that your mind is responding in a very normal way to prolonged invalidation. It's not insanity, it's conditioning. Anyone placed in an environment where their reality is constantly denied would begin to doubt themselves. That's not a reflection of weakness. It's a reflection of how powerful psychological manipulation can be. You are not the only one who has felt this way. People all over the world who have been in relationships with narcissists describe the same experiences. They talk about feeling invisible, feeling silenced, feeling like no one would believe them if they spoke up. They talk about lying awake at night, replaying conversations, wondering if they misunderstood. They talk about isolating themselves because it feels easier than explaining what's happening to people who don't see it. This pattern is so common that once survivors begin to share their stories, the relief is almost overwhelming. Suddenly, they realize they were never alone at all. What they went through was not unique to them. It was the product of a recognizable and well-documented cycle of narcissistic abuse. Part of why you feel crazy is because the narcissist benefits from you believing that. If you doubt yourself, you stop challenging them. If you feel unstable, you cling tighter to them for a sense of certainty. And if you isolate yourself because you think no one will understand, they gain even more control over your reality. But the truth is, your confusion is not proof that you're broken. It's proof that you've been systematically manipulated. Once you can frame it that way, your self-doubt becomes easier to understand and easier to heal. It's also important to remember that narcissists are masters of appearances. To the outside world, they may look composed, successful, even generous. And because other people don't experience the behind closed doors reality, they might find it hard to believe your story. That disbelief can make you feel even more alone, as if you're shouting into the void. But their inability to see the truth does not invalidate your experience. Just because others haven't lived it doesn't mean it isn't real. You hold the truth, even if no one else can see it yet. Healing begins with reclaiming your trust in yourself. That means learning to pause when the voice in your head says, maybe I'm exaggerating, and responding with compassion. No, I know what I experienced. It means writing down your memories if you need to, not to prove them to anyone else, but to remind yourself that your reality is valid. It means reconnecting with supportive voices, friends, communities, professionals, who can mirror back the truth when you've been trained to forget it. Because the antidote to the isolation of narcissistic abuse is connection. It is hearing the words, "I believe you," and slowly letting them sink in. You are not alone, even if it feels like it. There is a whole world of people who understand this experience, who have walked through the same fog of gaslighting, who have asked themselves the same haunting questions about their sanity. And they, too, discovered that the moment you recognize the pattern, you begin to reclaim your clarity. You begin to rebuild trust in your own perception. And you begin to understand that the problem was never your sensitivity, your memory, or your judgment. The problem was the deliberate manipulation of someone who needed to keep you doubting yourself in order to stay in control. You are not crazy for noticing the cruelty that others don't see. You are not crazy for feeling exhausted after constantly managing someone else's moods. You are not crazy for longing to be believed. Those feelings are the natural response of a human being living in a distorted reality created by another person. Your mind is not broken. It's reacting exactly as any mind would under those conditions. And the fact that you are questioning, the fact that you are searching for answers, shows that your mind is still working, still fighting for clarity. That inner fight is your strength, even if it feels small right now. So when that voice in your head whispers, "Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm losing it," answer back with the truth. "No, it's not me. I've been made to feel this way, but I am still here and I still see clearly." Every time you affirm that, you take back a piece of the power that was taken from you. And the more you do it, the more solid you feel standing in your own reality again. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not imagining it. What you have lived is real, and the fact that you can name it means you are already on the path out of the fog. Awareness is painful, but it is also powerful, because once you see the truth, you can no longer be trapped in the same way. You can begin to protect your peace, rebuild your trust in yourself, and remind yourself every single day, my reality matters, my truth matters, and I matter.